What if I told you that bag of chicken feed sitting in your barn is the biggest waste of money on your entire homestead? Right now, somewhere on your property, there are 5 plants that could feed your entire flock every single day for the rest of their lives, and you only have to plant them once. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to look at your feed bill completely differently. Let's talk about the real problem first. The average backpack of layer feed costs somewhere between $18 and $25, and a flock of 10 hens can chew through one of those every couple of weeks. That's not a one-time cost, that's forever. Month after month, year after year, you're handing your money to a feed mill, and the price never goes down, it only climbs. And it's not just about money. Think about the last time feed was out of stock at your local store. Maybe there was a shortage. Maybe the delivery truck didn't show up. Maybe the price jumped again without warning. Suddenly, you're driving from store to store, hoping somebody has a bag left, while your chickens are standing at the coop door looking at you like you forgot about them. That feeling, that dependency, that's the real cost nobody talks about. You're not just paying for feed, you're paying for the privilege of needing someone else to keep your animals alive. And if you're trying to live a more self-sufficient life, that should bother you. Here's the thing, though. Homesteaders have quietly been solving this problem for generations, using a handful of plants that most people walk right past without even noticing. These aren't exotic, hard-to-find seeds. Some of them might already be growing in your yard right now, and you don't even realize they're basically free chicken feed. I'm not going to give you some complicated system that takes a greenhouse and a science degree to manage. I'm going to show you 5 plants. Once they're in the ground, they keep producing, season after season, with almost no effort from you. Let's get into the first one. Number 1 is Comfrey. If you've never heard of it, Comfrey is basically a perennial powerhouse that homesteaders have nicknamed chicken candy. Here's why. Comfrey grows an enormous root system that pulls nutrients up from deep in the soil, way deeper than most plants can reach. That means the leaves are loaded with protein, way more than your average green, somewhere around 20 to 30% protein by dry weight, which honestly rivals commercial feed. But here's where it gets interesting. You can chop Comfrey down to almost nothing, and within 3 to 4 weeks, it grows right back. Some homesteaders cut it 5 or 6 times in a single growing season. Plant it once, and it just keeps giving. Chickens go absolutely crazy for the fresh leaves, and you can also dry it for winter use when nothing else is growing. Here's where most people get it wrong with Comfrey. They plant 1 or 2 plants and wonder why it's not making a dent in their feed bill. You need a proper patch, at least 10 to 15 plants to actually support a flock. Comfrey also spreads through root cuttings, not seeds, in most varieties, so plant it somewhere you don't mind it staying forever, because once it's established, it is not leaving. Number 2 is Mulberry. Now this one is special because it's not just a plant, it's a tree, and trees are the ultimate grow-once investment. A single mature mulberry tree can produce hundreds of pounds of berries and leaves every single year for decades. We're talking 30, 40, even 50 years of production from one planting. Chickens eat the berries when they drop, they eat the leaves, and the protein content in mulberry leaves is honestly shocking. Some studies on livestock feed have measured leaf protein levels above 20%, which is why mulberry leaf meal is actually used in commercial poultry and livestock feed formulations in parts of Asia and Africa. This isn't some homestead myth. There's real agricultural research behind it. But this is the part nobody tells you. A mulberry tree takes 2 to 3 years to really start producing at scale. This is not an instant solution. This is the long game. If you plant it today, you're setting up free food for your grandchildren's chickens, not just your own. That's the trade-off. Patience now, payoff for decades.
Number 3 is sunflowers. And I want to be honest, this is the one I personally messed up when I started. I planted a small patch, maybe a dozen plants, thinking it would barely matter. I was wrong. Sunflower heads are basically nature's pre-packaged chicken feed. The seeds are dense in protein and fat, easily 20% protein and up to 40% fat, which gives your birds energy, especially heading into winter. Here's the beautiful part. sunflowers reseed themselves. Drop a head on the ground in fall, and by spring, you've got volunteer sunflowers coming up without you lifting a finger. I made the mistake of cutting all my heads for storage and not leaving a single one to fall naturally. Lesson learned. Now I always leave a portion of the patch to reseed itself, and every year my sunflower patch gets bigger with zero extra planting. Number 4, and this one surprises people, is amaranth. Most people think of amaranth as a fancy health food grain, but it is an absolute workhorse on a homestead. The seeds are packed with protein, somewhere around 15 to 17%, and the leaves are edible too, so chickens get a 2-for-1 plant. They'll eat the foliage all summer, and then in fall, you've got thousands of tiny seeds per plant for them to forage through. Here's the curiosity gap I promised you earlier. Amaranth doesn't just feed your chickens. It reseeds so aggressively that one season's planting can give you volunteer amaranth for years afterward, sometimes considered a weed by people who don't know what they're looking at. One homesteader I know stopped buying scratch grain almost entirely after letting a 1/4-acre patch go to seed naturally for 2 seasons. The birds foraged through it all winter long. Number 5 is moringa. And if you live somewhere with a longer warm season, this might be the single most powerful plant on this entire list. Moringa is sometimes called the miracle tree, and it's not just marketing. The leaves contain close to 27% protein when dried, which is genuinely comparable to soybean meal, one of the main protein sources in commercial poultry feed. Moringa grows ridiculously fast. We're talking 10 to 15 feet in the first year alone, and you can keep it prunes low and bushy specifically so chickens can reach the leaves themselves. Cut it back and it regrows aggressively, just like comfrey. The big catch, and I have to be honest about this, is cold tolerance. Moringa struggles below freezing, so if you're in a colder climate, you'll either need to treat it as an annual or bring potted versions indoors for winter. So let's talk about what this actually looks like when you put it all together. Imagine a chicken run with comfrey along the fence line, a mulberry tree providing shade and berries overhead, sunflowers and amaranth filling in the open ground, and moringa pruned low near the coop door. That's not a garden. That's a self-sustaining feed system. Now, let's talk numbers, because I know that's what you're really here for. A homesteader feeding 10 chickens conventionally might spend around $400 to $500 a year on feed. Multiple homesteaders who shifted to a forage-heavy system using plants like these report cutting that feed bill by 60 to even 90%, depending on how aggressively they plant and how long their growing season runs. You're not necessarily eliminating feed entirely overnight, but you are taking back control. And that's really the transformation here. Before, you're standing at the feed store, watching prices climb, hoping the shelves are stocked, completely dependent on a system you don't control. After, you walk out your back door, cut an armful of comfrey and mulberry leaves, scatter some sunflower heads, and your flock eats like royalty, for free, from plants you planted once and never had to replant again. This isn't about replacing feed completely on day one. It's about planting the seeds, literally, for a future where your homestead needs less from the outside world every single year. That's what real self-sufficiency looks like. It's not a switch you flip, it's a system you grow. So here's my challenge for you. Pick just one of these 5 plants, the one that fits your climate best, and get it in the ground this season. Not all 5, just one. Start small, let it establish, and watch what happens to your feed bill next year. If you've already got one of these growing and didn't realize what it was capable of, tell me in the comments which one it is. And if this video saved you from buying one more unnecessary bag of feed, that's exactly why I make these. Subscribe if you want more ways to make your homestead work for you instead of the other way around, because the goal was never just to raise chickens. The goal is to never need a feed store again.